Why do Americans call it soccer while most of the world calls it football or football? Well, the irony of this is that the word soccer actually comes from England and was invented by the English and not the Americans. So back in England in the late 1800s, there were two sports that were being played primarily on college campuses, and these were football, the modern day soccer, and rugby. Now, football back then was called association football. So they'd be playing like this in this picture right here. So we have association football, and then we have rugby football. So rugby football, association football. Now it's to say association football, that's a long word. So what they did is they shortened the word. And so back then they would shorten words much like we do today. So rugby would be called rugger. And association soccer, what we think they did is they took the word association, dropped a lot of the words, said SOC, and then added ER. So soccer. And so they called for most of the late 1800s and also through the 1900s, they called it soccer. The English did. It was not football in England. And you can even look at the US and you can see in 1913, in the US, we were first formed as the United States Football Association. And then you can see that beginning in 1945, it changed and it turned into the U.S. Soccer Football Association. And then finally in the 70s, it actually changed to the U.S. Soccer Federation. So what ended up happening is for most of the 1900s, it was called soccer in England. And you also had people called it football. And then post-World War II, some words kind of started to go out of style. And so the Americans were calling it soccer, and the British, they started switching back to the word football, beginning in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and onwards. And so that's kind of the reason why Americans, we call it soccer. It's actually an imported word from England, which the English don't even use it anymore. They just say football. But that's where the word comes from. It comes from England, just like the sport itself. And like I said, started on college campuses, slang word, association football, came over to the United States, and that's what it's like to this day. So there you go, soccer versus football.